Welcome to the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong, and today we have another great guest. I'm very excited to have him here. I hear a lot of amazing things from him. I saw his picture, I saw his bio. I'm like, wow, this person's absolutely amazing. He is the authority in business strategy, innovation, and he has this knack to find that hidden potential in grown-ups as well, which is absolutely amazing. He is also known as one of the most original thinkers in business today, and also the Robin Williams of business consulting, which I'm going to absolutely ask him about. He helps unlock the genius in all people when it comes to helping them deliver a compelling offer or value for their customers. He is featured in Wall Street Journal, NPR, CNN, Fast Company, amongst many other media outlets and magazines out there, and also the author of 4 books. So please welcome best-selling author, keynote speaker, business strategist, Mr. Alan Gregerman.
Greetings. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for being here. First of all, I'm going to have to address one thing. Where did you find those glasses?
Um, I actually have like 5 pairs of glasses by the same artist. She's like an artist and entrepreneur, and all my glasses are hand painted. And backstory, I've been wearing glasses since kindergarten, so since I was 5 years old. And when I was 5 years old, glasses were really dorky. And so I got called a lot of things. So when I could have cool glasses, I decided, why not?
You have like multiple different colors and stuff like that
Oh
that
yeah,
matches
so I
different
like to have
outfits.
glasses that kind of go with what I'm wearing. I like to be somewhat colorful. I think of business as being colorful. We'll talk about kind of where you find ideas, and I feel like the world is super colorful, so I like to wear different glasses kind of go along with it. And because I run an innovation consulting firm, I can kind of get away with this.
That is awesome. Well, since you mentioned the innovation consulting firm, how did you get there? Like, were you doing innovations to begin with? Were you doing consulting to begin with? What was your journey towards who you are today?
Okay, good. No, that's a great question. So I started, I mean, not to sound old, but I started our company 37 years ago. And I started it based on having 2 experiences that maybe some of the people listening have had similar experiences with. The first was before I even went to college, I worked for what was a large industrial company called Westinghouse. And it was a really big brand. It was based in Pittsburgh, and I worked for a division in California. I was there 2 years, and during those 2 years, I made 10 suggestions for things that I thought would improve their production and operations, and I never heard back on any of those suggestions. Now, it turns out several years after I left, they actually implemented some of my ideas, but told me because I was no longer an employee, I wasn't eligible for the bonus that was attached to it. It's okay. But what made me realize in that was that in big organizations, unless it's an awesome big organization, the likelihood that somebody who's innovative and can have an idea is actually going to have a chance to make that idea happen probably is not great. So that was one thing. The second thing was I ended up being a doctoral student, and so I actually have a PhD in geography. And um, I had thought when I started to be a doctoral student, I would want to be a college professor. I hated being at universities. There's a lot of politics. I don't want to say anything bad in case there are professors listening. People argue or debate or have big deals about things that aren't significant at all. So, halfway through my dissertation, I went to volunteer with a group of entrepreneurs in Detroit, Michigan. I was at the University of Michigan. And I was helping them grow their business, exactly what you said at the outset. I was helping them figure out how they could be valuable, what was the value proposition they offered, how could they be different than their competitors, how could they make their customers adore them. And I loved doing this. I loved working with entrepreneurs. So after I finished my PhD, I committed not to go to a university, but to follow the path of setting up a company where I would work with established companies and entrepreneurs, helping them to be more innovative.
That is that awesome. When it comes to innovation, is that something that a person is born with, or can you actually kind of hone that skill set and kind of practice it and become better at it?
Okay, so that's a great question. So, most companies and a lot of innovation consultants believe that it is something that we're born with. that there's certain people who have a knack for innovation, for connecting dots, seeing ideas that haven't been put together before. And in a way, that's true. Some people, they never lost what is an innate sense of curiosity that all of us had as small children. They never lost that. They always questioned. They found business places in which to do that. My view of the world is actually we all have the ability to be innovative. And the challenge for all of us is to figure out how to get it back, actually. As kids, we were all remarkably innovative. We didn't know a lot and we tried to do new things because we really wanted to learn and do new things. As adults, we can do that. But somewhere between childhood and the world of adult work, most of us lost the knack for being curious and we started to just do the same basic things we were told to do. And so I spent a lot of time writing and consulting with companies on how you get back this sense of curiosity. But I believe it's in all of us.
So how does one actually get that back? Because I hear a lot of people say, well, you have to be more creative. You have to be able to think outside the box. Well, frick, I'm in my box. How can I
Right.
think outside of it when it's outside, right? So if somebody is currently not very creative or not very innovative in their minds, okay, as
In
they've
their
been
minds.
told,
Okay, good.
right? How do they hone it or find it?
Okay, good. Well, of course, I have a new book coming out called The Wisdom of Ignorance. I would love people to read it. It gives a lot of these ideas. But let me kind of explain. In most organizations, they do exactly what you just mentioned. They say, we've got to be more creative. Does anybody have an out of the box idea? And then they get like really smart people in a nice room. There's like whiteboards, there's sticky notes. They give them blank sheets of paper and they say, okay, go ahead. Share an idea with us. And it's as though people who sit in the same office every day could turn on the part of their brain that's like innovative or creative or out of the box instantly just because we asked them to. The reality is, if they could, they, I hope, would be doing it all the time. So
Gotcha.
here's the first thing I'd like people to think about is if you want to be creative and do something different than what you're doing today, get up from your desk and kind of engage the world head on. So get up and get out, get energized, wander through a city, wander through a park, go to a museum, go to a concert, go to a new business, go someplace where there's a spark of a new idea that's going to get you thinking. So that's the first thing. But let's go back for a second because, a lot of companies also think that just asking people to be innovative is going to get them to be brilliant in the right way. First, it's not going to get them to be brilliant, but in the right way. So I'm coming back from giving a speech in Bangalore in India and my plane transfers in Delhi. And at the Delhi airport, there's a table with a box that says, do you have any ideas for the airport? If so, put them in here. Uh, any ideas for what? Should they have better food in the vending machine? Should they have people that make the line shorter? I don't know the answer. But most companies simply say, okay, fine, let's be innovative. Anybody have a brilliant idea? And 90% of the ideas they're not going to do anything with anyway. And they're not going to do anything because those ideas aren't focused on making them more remarkable. So we need to begin with focus or what I call purpose. If somebody wants to be innovative, find something that you want to be remarkable at. Find a problem you want to solve or an opportunity you want to create. Find real estate you want to develop, whatever the case is, but find something that matters to you that you wake up in the morning super excited to try and do. And that then drives you now, let's say, let's be curious about how to be brilliant at this. Now I get out from where I work. I know with COVID, a bunch of people started working from home. So whether you go to an office or a factory, or you work from your kitchen table, get up and wander around. You're not going to have an original idea sitting where you always sit, but you'll have an original idea if you wander around and kind of look at the world with fresh eyes. So I tell people to wander around. The next thing I ask people to do is to be humble, okay? So most people think not knowing something or letting people know you don't know something is a bad look. I think it's a superpower because the reality is none of us know very much. The world is moving by really fast and we need to get with the program. And the way we get with the program is by acknowledging we don't know exactly what's going on, but we're going to figure it out. I often tell entrepreneurs or people thinking about going into entrepreneurship Figure out something matters to you, be curious about it, and don't be worried that you don't know enough to be successful. You'll figure it out along the way.
Very, very true. And going back to that first comment you made about doing something different and going out there and walking around and view the world differently and all that kind of stuff, it goes back to like, hey, try something new every single day. And when it comes to creativity, it's kind of based on your experiences and your environment and the exposure that you get, and you kind of copy and paste what works here, what works there, try this over here, and all of a sudden you're creative, right? So going out there trying different things is so important.
Yeah, and creativity is so let me share something else that I'd love people to think about. So I mentioned you don't have to know a ton to be
Mm.
innovative. In fact, 99%, what I call the 99% rule, 99% of all new ideas are based on someone else's thinking or something found in nature. This is true throughout the course of human history. So the reality is people don't invent things entirely from scratch. Imagine this. My guess is a lot of your listeners use Uber, either Uber to get a ride or Uber Eats because they want food brought to them because they don't want to take their pajamas off, whatever the case is. Uber is not, Uber is like an original idea, yes, kind of, sort of, but it's an original idea because it put a bunch of ideas together, okay? Uber is better than a taxi, but it's kind of based on the idea of getting a shared ride, a taxi. Two friends didn't know anything about the taxi business, looking for a taxi cab in Paris in the winter, can't find one. They suddenly say to themselves, there's something, the 99% rule, that exists now called GPS or GIS technology, global positioning systems. I can take somebody who needs a ride and attach them to somebody who has a car and bring those people together. Um, and then they can have a ride. That's what Uber is. It's a better form of a taxi service. Did they invent taxis? No. Did they invent the technology that drives it? No. But they put those things together. So, as you said, when you get out and look around, you have more dots to connect, right? And so
Exactly.
find dots that are inspiring and connect them to the challenge you face.
Now, talking about connecting dots and something that you mentioned before, helping people find their USP, finding that value that they give to their customers and their clients and whatnot. How does one hone that? Because lots of people struggle with that. They struggle with finding that what do you call it, that clientele that follows them all the time, that brand advocacy, where people go, oh, if it's you, we're there. But that's based on the value and what you're able to provide to your clients. Now, when you ask lots of people, oh, we work hard, oh, our products are great and all that kind of stuff, but everybody could say that. So when you
Everybody
work,
does say that,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
So when you work with them, aside from the whole, hey, you have a great product and you guys work hard and all that kind of stuff, how else do you find that value for them?
Yeah, so that's great. So I believe, when I think about working with our customers, that value should be tied to what matters most to your customers. Okay, so I need to know my customers deeply to understand what matters to them. Is speed really important to them? Is it the ability to support what I do? Is it the technology that matters to them? Is it that I stand behind the products? There are literally dozens of ways I can be different. It needs to be something different than what other people are offering, but different in a way that really matters to customers. So let me give you a great example. One of my favorite companies had a brilliant differentiation for 107 years, and then for some odd reason they stopped. And that's a company called LL Bean. They make camping gear, camping clothing, fishing rods, all kinds of stuff to be outdoors. From 1912, when they started their company, until 2019, they unconditionally guaranteed satisfaction in every one of their products. So if I bought something that could break a fishing rod and it breaks and I'm not happy with it, even if I'd had it for 10 years, I could turn it back and the company would give me another one or give me a refund. That's kind of an outrageous differentiation. They determined after a while people were taking advantage of them and so they couldn't do it. But think about, for whatever business you're in, guaranteeing what you do. People buy from you because they want something from you, a product, service, or solution that works. Guarantee that it will. guarantee that you'll support it, provide instant technical support. In an era of AI, provide real humans who know something who are going to support your product. There's so many ways to do it. Be faster. I just ordered some printing related to my new book. And I talked to lots of printers, and one of the things I asked them was, how quickly can I get this done? And one printer said, how about tomorrow? And I
Perfect.
said, whoa, that's awesome. I said, could I see the proof tonight? They said, anytime tonight, we'll send it to you. So the reality is they were differentiated by speed. Their price was good, but they were differentiated by speed. So the reality is find out what matters to your customer and then deliver value tied to that. And don't limit yourself. Be creative. What is great customer service? What is great technical support? What's a great product or service? Think about the details of those and be different because if you're not different, you're not going to win.
That's very, very true. And being able to stand out as well. Now, lots of people out there goes, yeah, I'm different. I have great value. I have all these things in line. But man, that company there has a bigger following, bigger brand. They're more well known. All that. How do I compete with somebody that's already like stabilized and already out there in the marketplace that everybody knows their name? Like, how do you compete with the giants?
I got to offer something that's uniquely valuable. I've got to get people to be willing to make a change. So think about it. Giants are actually, for the most part, relatively slow. Think about storybooks we read as kids. Think about movies. They're slow and lumbering. You don't want them to step on you, of course, because that would hurt, but they don't move that fast. You have the ability as an entrepreneur or in a small to mid-sized company to move relatively fast. You have the ability in a large company to do it, but it all depends on your division and your boss. So, what I say is stand out from somebody else. And this is a great question to ask because 37 years ago, when I started our company, I started as an innovation consultant. Innovation wasn't super popular. I also was a strategy consultant. There were these big brands doing strategy consulting, McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, Bain and Company, Deloitte, all of these people. Um, I knew that it was going to be hard to stand out, so I took this idea from LL Bean. I offered an unconditional guarantee of satisfaction for consulting work.
Oh,
What an
wow.
insane idea. I've offered that for 37 years. I am a keynote speaker. I speak around the world. I offer an unconditional guarantee of satisfaction in my speeches. If the audience doesn't find it valuable, the customer doesn't have to pay. And so this helps me to stand out. It's different. Nobody else is going to do that. McKinsey's not going to guarantee their work. They're going to charge you $2 million, with all due respect to them. And maybe or maybe not, you can use the value of what they do. I'm going to stand behind what I do and guarantee the value of what I do. So that's a differentiator. So I say for anybody looking to stand out, you got to figure out a reason to stand out. You got to say to yourself, what would get these customers to move away from a big firm because I'm more valuable than them?
Mhm.
Here's an example. I don't know how many of your listeners kind of use this, but I have 3 dogs. I could buy pet food on Amazon. It's the biggest, e-commerce site on the planet. But I choose to buy dog food and pet supplies from Chewy. It's one focused entirely on pets. Their differentiator is all they care about is pets. They don't offer all kinds of other stuff. So if I have a question when I call them, they know pets really well. Now, their problem was initially it took a while to get their stuff. So if I wanted something quickly, Amazon was really good. Chewy's figured out how to solve that problem. So we have to figure out how to be as good in the basics as our big competitors. And then we have to figure out something unique that's more important to customers.
Mhm. Very, very true. It's sometimes very difficult to stand out, but sometimes it's just that smaller differentiator that really shines and everybody starts coming to you and all that kind of stuff. You mentioned about we talked about standing out, sticking out, and also speaking. And I truly believe when it comes to getting noticed, speaking is one of those skill sets that's very, very important. Lots of people go, no, my product can speak for itself and all that kind of stuff. But then when it comes to, like, for instance, Apple, without Steve Jobs going out there talking about it, it won't have that same impact. So for you, when it comes to speaking, was that something that was natural for you or something that you worked hard on or something that just, kind of gradually became much, much, much better?
Um, I'd like to think that I'm okay talking with people, but I never intended to be a professional speaker. What would happen is I'd get customers, and customers would say, "We're having a meeting. Would you be glad to come and share your ideas?" And I said, "Yes." And I started to do this, and then more and more people asked me about speaking. And I think of late I've spoken to like 700,000 people around the world in like 36 countries. Um, so, um, but speaking then, so two things I'd like to say about what you asked. The first is you've got to be able to speak about what you do. You've got to create excitement about what you do. Even if you're an introvert, you've got to, in your own way, create some excitement. You know, the idea that you shared that products speak for themselves, products are inanimate. Services are kind of inanimate unless you tie it to you or your team. Um, they don't speak for themselves. They need somebody. You need to back up what you say, but you've got to speak for yourself. You've got to get out there and engage the market. So I'd say any chance there is to get in front of customers or some group of customers, you ought to do it. The second thing I'd say is speaking not unlike anything else, real estate, consulting, home repair, um, creating a new pharmaceutical. Um, Speaking's a business. You know, you got to understand that if you want to be serious about speaking as part of what you do or your whole business, you got to treat it like a business. So everybody listening needs to treat whatever matters to them as a business, I think. If we don't do that, we're not going to win. We've got to be all in, you know. And customers recognize that. Customers recognize whether you enter something with your whole heart and mind or you're just going through the motions.
Mhm. You mentioned those introverts, and I know a lot of people out there who are like, yeah, I really don't want to talk about anything. I just want to do my work. I don't want to stand out and all kind of stuff. But then they also have this inner fire to succeed and rise above the ranks and whatnot. How does one break out of being an introvert?
Well, so I don't think we break out of being an introvert. I think we use the value of being an introvert. And so we put ourselves in situations where being introverted is okay. It's like our comfortable or our happy place. Okay, so I think we're kind of born to be kind of somewhere between introverted and extroverted. And a bunch of us are kind of in the middle. So in certain situations we're extroverted, we can be outgoing with friends at a ball game. We can be introverted at work. That's okay. What's the advantage of introverts? I mean, there are a lot of advantages, but think about it. If I'm in a room and in a meeting and somebody asks a question, like the big boss asks a question, the extroverts are going to shout out an answer, okay? They might not have thought about it very much, but they're going to shout out an answer. They could be brilliant. It's fine. As an introvert, I'm going to make some notes and think about it, and I'm not going to speak until I'm ready to speak. I might have a better idea. So I need to find places in which I'm okay sharing my ideas. Now, where are those places? They're with people who I'm comfortable with. They're with people who have a similar training or background to me. They're with people that I feel won't judge me because I don't necessarily instantly come up with a brilliant idea. I don't need to instantly come up with a brilliant idea. I just need to come up with a brilliant idea. So I need to find some places where I'm comfortable with people. If I'm an introvert, I probably start with smaller groups, and that could be a handful or a couple handfuls of people. I wouldn't start with a large audience. I think the largest audience I've spoken in front of is like 4,500 people. Um, Probably not ideal for an introvert, though an introvert could get up there and say, dim the lights, then I won't even notice that these people are here. It's all okay. But no, so I think play with what you've got, okay? So you can be remarkable whether you're introverted or extroverted. My guess is at least as many successful entrepreneurs are introverts as extroverts. Pick something that doesn't require you to talk to a million people, but figure out who you need to talk with and get out there and engage with them. Then the other thing I think that gets to your question is I'd build up my ability to just engage with people. I'm waiting in line at a movie, I'd start to talk with a stranger. I sit down next to somebody on an airplane, I at least say hello. I don't need to be the most extroverted person on the planet to do that. Maybe I strike up a conversation. I want to just practice talking with people and feeling comfortable, but I don't have to be extroverted to win.
Yeah, it's those like small little steps that people can take, simply just saying hi or how are you and all that kind of stuff. And it just allows you to get a little bit more comfortable talking, hearing your own
Exactly.
voice, and looking at somebody who you don't
Right.
know and having that conversation, which goes a long, long way. Now, for somebody who's been through so much, who's had so much success and worked with so many different people, is there one specific moment where you go, wow, that was a great lesson, and I'm not gonna make that mistake again?
Oh, there's so many, maybe because I have a lot of gray hair. So there's so many things. But if I were to think about advice I would give to folks now, there's so many, but here are a couple things that always come to mind. The first one to me is whoever talks last is the winner. So we just talked about introversion. So this is an asset if you're an introvert. If you have a customer or a prospect, your job is not to talk a lot about yourself and your product or service because I don't know what aspect of my product or service truly resonates with them. I need to find that out. It's an exploration. So you go into a meeting and somebody says, "Okay, so tell me all about you." And I go, "Well, I'm Alan Gregerman, the president of VentureWorks, but enough about me. Let me find out what really matters to you. I know we have a limited amount of time. Let me find out what matters to you." So I believe kind of what gets talked about as active listening is absolutely essential. Is with everyone I meet, let me hear their story first. Let me ask them questions, find out what matters to them, and then tailor my story or our product, service, or solution to what actually meets their needs. I think that would be awesome. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and this is harder maybe for introverts than extroverts, and that is business and life are filled with rejection, okay? Folks who don't see how awesome our products or services are. The person we wanted to go out with that is not interested in going out with us. The party I didn't get invited to, which would have been an awesome party. All those things happen. Behind me, on the door there, is my favorite word, and that word is next. And so I want everybody to etch in their mind the word next. Um, the reality is we're not going to win all the time. I, I submit a lot of proposals. I mean, I have a fairly good hit rate because I have a long track record. But even with a fairly good hit rate, let's say that 70% of the time I talk with somebody and they go, "Well, we'd like to hire you." 30% of the time they say, "We have no interest at all." I could either go, "Oh my God, I've been rejected," or I could go, "It's a big world. Next, let me try and talk to the next person." But I believe a lot of people listening get really frustrated or discombobulated when somebody says no to
Mhm.
them, you know? And we just have to get over that. We're not perfect for everybody, but it's a big planet. There's like 8 billion people on the planet, and there's hundreds of thousands of customers for almost any product or service. For me, there's like a zillion customers. So I might reach out to people and they don't respond, or I might have a meeting with somebody and they don't call me back in or ask for a proposal. I just say next, I've done my best. I've asked them questions. I've listened. I understand their needs. I might honestly believe I can meet their needs better than anybody else. I haven't convinced them, or there's something else going on. So, oh, that's a third thing. Everybody has a backstory, and we don't know that backstory unless they're like our closest friends in the world. We don't know when we walk into a room to talk with somebody or we send them an email, whether or not there's something going on in their world that we'll never understand that influences whether they're able to move forward. And so knowing that, I just, it makes it easier to say next. I go, whatever, they got a lot going on. I'll find somebody else. Life is short.
Mhm. I love that thought process, and that whole next concept is absolutely amazing because lots of people are so fixated on the rejection, so fixated on that present moment where they're feeling bad that they don't want to go to the next person because they're fearing that another rejection's coming. So
Right.
focusing on the next one, the next one, the next one, you never know what's going to happen. So my question for you is, once you go next, is there
Right.
any scenario where you go back and go, maybe I'll repitch it again. This time it will be different.
I wouldn't go back unless I had something new to say.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's fine. And I something new to say might not be that I've dramatically changed my product or service, but I'm okay with next moving forward. If somebody says absolutely not, I would never go back to them. If somebody says not right now, or it might be that they're trying to be nice. That's fine. Now I have 3 months later a new proof point. I have a new customer like them who's incredibly happy with what I'm offering them. I can say, just thought I'd circle back because I'm doing work with one of your competitors or another company that you admire, and they actually kind of love the results, not the stuff. Nobody buys my stuff because they want a consultant around. They buy my stuff because they understand that if we work hard together, they'll get results. So they love the results we're getting, and I just thought it might be something of interest to you. Or I do this. So imagine this if I'm one of your listeners, and that is I'm trying to establish myself in a new business. Um, I either start a blog or write a 1 or 2 pager on the key issues in that industry, and I send it out to people. Um, and I can tell you from my experience, I can come up with something that's 1 or 2 pages, send it to customers, and they'll say, I never realized you were an expert in this. And I go, I never realized I was an expert in this either. I just wrote a 1 or 2 pager. But if I write a 1 or 2 pager that makes things smarter, like 5 things that no one understands about innovation,
Mhm.
and then I send it to people. Now I have a reason to go back to somebody. If I believe that that's going to resonate with them, you know, and the other thing is when we're in business, we're going to do a lot of things to make people's lives better and they might never hire us. That's okay. We're in a service. Every business, there's product, solution, service business. Every business is a service business. I'm serving the people who are my customers. I might serve people who are potential customers. They never buy from me. Do I feel bad about that? No, I gave them some free wisdom. Good luck to them. Um, Over time, they're going to say, it would be nice to have this guy around.
And I'm sure once you also say the point that, oh, your competitors love the results that I'm getting them, that sure lights a fire under their butt.
Oh, I think whatever you can say, I'm working with your competitors. And because what's their hope? Their hope is I'll spill some of the beans.
Mhm.
Okay, tell me, what's my competitor doing that I'm not doing? And of course, I pledge confidentiality to everybody. So I simply say, your competitor's wonderful, but you can be too.
Very, very smart. Okay. How did you get known as the Robin Williams of business consulting? And how did
Well,
it feel to get told that the first time?
No. So, um, as I mentioned, I give a lot of speeches now, and I've created these really super fun workshops in which I take teams of people exploring cities to look for new ideas. Um, my speeches are generally a lot of fun. I mean, I'm not a comedian, but I hope that I make them fun and interesting. So I tell a lot of stories. I explain a lot of humorous things that I've observed. And so I think after a while, I was doing work with a big company called Marriott, which is the largest hotel company in the world. And I was working with a bunch of their executives. And I spent the day with their executives. And then one of their most senior executives said, it's like spending a day with Robin Williams, only you're consulting with us. And I said, well, I think that's generally good. I like Robin Williams. He was a funny guy. He's no longer with us. And so that happened. And then other people have compared me to other comedians they like in terms of what I deliver. But, I like the fact, I'm all about when I speak getting people to learn and act. I want my speeches to have impact. And I wouldn't do that if I showed a lot of PowerPoint slides. I would do that by using props, telling stories, and creating humor, people are going to remember those things. And if they remember what you talked about, they have a better chance to do them.
That is great because, as they say in business and branding, it's not what you say, it's what people say. And if people say, "Hey, it's like Rob Williams," like, yeah, I'll take that. That's a great branding moment. So, congrats on that. And then also coming to current day, you have a new book coming out, which
Right.
you mentioned before. You also have a few other books. Speak to us about all those books, and then how did you come about the recent one?
Okay, good. So all my books are about innovation and how people and companies and organizations can be more successful. I also believe they're all counterintuitive because I believe if it's a mainstream idea, there's a good chance that it's wrong. And so I believe most mainstream ideas about innovation are totally wrong. My first book was called Lessons from the Sandbox. It was a book about what companies can learn from small children. It was translated into like 15 different languages, and people all around the world said, God, this is a weird idea, isn't it? Um, it's not a weird idea because, as we said at the outset, as kids, we were all super innovative. We were curious, we had imaginations, we had a sense of wonder, we tried new things, we were playing all the time. As adults, we don't do those things. So, my first thought when our kids were young was, let me look at kids and figure out why they're so creative. And so I wrote a book about that, and it was pretty popular. My second book was called Surrounded by Geniuses. It's a book about how you can find ideas outside your industry that could make your business and your industry better. We tend to have a really narrow view of the world, okay? We tend to say, what's the best practice in my industry? I'm going to try and emulate that. That's a stupid idea. What if your industry is not that good at what you're trying to do? Isn't there somebody better? A bank once said to me, we want to improve customer service. We want to be the best bank at customer service. And I said, are banks renowned for being good at customer service? And they said, well, not really. And I said, so you aspire to be the best of the worst. I said, why don't you actually try to be awesomely good at what you do? Find like a company that's really good at customer service in another industry and model their behavior. And so we did that. My third book was called The Necessity of Strangers, and it gets back to the introvert extrovert thing. Is I believe that while friends and colleagues are real important, strangers are actually more important to our success than the people we know because strangers open new doors, new ideas, new potential customers, and so we need to connect with them. So that's a book about how you connect with strangers. And my new book, which I love, The Wisdom of Ignorance, is based on this simple notion, and that is if you know a lot about something, you can make it incrementally better. Totally confident about that because you know it so well that you can tweak it, adjust this, adjust the cost, adjust the support, make a feature on a product. If you don't know anything about something, you have a chance to make a breakthrough because you approach it with an open mind. And so this book is really about how we all, through 6 fundamental steps, can have an open mind and do remarkable things. And it's even if we're in an existing company, we can do remarkable things there. But if we branch out on our own, we can do remarkable things. And the book kind of shows you how. So I'm super excited about it. It's called The Wisdom of Ignorance. I'm really keen on. I say to people, not knowing is your superpower, not knowing a lot about something, but not knowing. And you'll appreciate this. A customer said to me recently, well, Alan Gregerman, when it comes to not knowing stuff, he's a genius.
Well, that's a great way of viewing that because it allows you to become a positive. And
Right.
lots of people are so down in dumps saying, "Hey, I don't know enough. I don't know enough." Well, if you look at it as a superpower, now it's a positive thing, and you can feel uplifted about that. I also like the your whole concept of the second book because the whole conceptual implementation is so important. And I've seen it done many times in different companies. There's like an event business that does like lots of conferences and whatnot, and I believe they got consulting with the Disney group to talk about how to do lineups and registrations and all kinds of stuff to make it more efficient. And man, that just changes everything because Go Disney has one of the best ones when it comes to efficiencies of running crowds. And if you apply that into a conference scenario, your conference is going to run like really smoothly. So I love that whole concept.
Well, no, so I think you're exactly right. So figure out what you want to do. Remember, we talked about purpose, then figure out who in the world in any walk of life is doing it brilliantly. I take people from large industrial companies that need to support their products better. I take them to performances of Cirque du Soleil. And we get there 45 minutes early. I give them all these cute little tiny notepads. And I say, here's what we're going to do. I want you to write down every element from before to after the performance that they do that makes their performance brilliant.
Mm.
And they say, well, why am I doing this? And I say, I'll explain it to you at the end. And they write all these things down. And then we get back to their office and I say, here's what I want you to think about. Business is a performance. It's how we tee off or set up
Mm.
our products, services, or solutions. It's how we deliver them in a compelling way. And then it's how we follow up afterwards to make sure the customer is satisfied. And if I go to a great performance, I'm going to learn that. People can go to an orchestra or a playhouse near them. They'll find that out. Just get there early and take a lot of notes. See how they bring people in, see how they welcome people, see how they engage. Cirque du Soleil is really good because they always start with a bit of audience participation. They engage people. How do we do that in our companies or organization? So I want people really to think about that. And then I want people to think about the simple idea. And I was really lucky. So a kind of well-known kind of writer and podcaster, Mel Robbins, wrote a quote for the front of my book. And she wrote, "This is your permission slip to start doing things before you have all the answers." And I want people to think about that is the world is moving super fast. I don't need to know everything to launch something new. I just need to have a good idea. And if I have a good idea, let me put it out there 80% brilliantly and see what customers think and ask customers to make it better. I think that's cool. So I don't want people to think about, a lot of us have what gets called in psychology the imposter syndrome. We're afraid that we're not worthy. Like we go to a meeting at work and we sit there and we go, God, I hope they don't call on me. Or if you have any students listening, they go to a lecture and they go, God, I haven't done the homework. I hope they don't call on me. Or I go to a party and I go, I hope I don't introduce myself to somebody who's like an applied physicist. I'll seem like such a moron. No, you won't. Ask questions and use what you don't know to show them that you'd actually like to learn more. That's awesome.
Great ideas. The Cirque du Soleil idea is great. Asking questions also very great. That's why you're a genius, right?
A genius at not knowing stuff. Come on.
Awesome. So your book is coming out very soon, and then also, what's the next big thing? So your book's out, then what?
Yeah, so the book comes out. Of course, I'll be consulting around it, but I'm going to do a speaking tour around the world. So if anybody listening is interested in having me come into their company or organization, delighted to do that. Uh, Already kind of have arranged speaking in Asia, Europe, throughout North America, India. So I'm excited to share these ideas, of course. After this, I have ideas for a few more books and some other things I'd like to get out there. I'm just keen on sharing some ideas with people and kind of opening people's minds to their own ability to be remarkable.
Mhm.
So I view the next 2 years as talking with as many people and sharing as many ideas as I can. Then I'll move on to another book. In the short term, I'm building a greenhouse in our backyard, so I'm kind of excited about that. I wouldn't mind doing a little gardening year round. But other than that, no, I'm fine. I mean, I travel a lot, so I like to travel, but I'll use kind of some of these business trips as ways to go to places and then just hang out and learn stuff. Uh,
There you go.
I'm going to go to some new museums. I'm going to go to some new businesses. I'm just going to always be out there learning new things, I hope.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for your journey ahead. And before I let you go, I would like to also ask you if you had an opportunity to speak to everyone, what's that one last message you want everybody to remember Alan for?
That's a big question. God, I've been working so long, but here's what I'd like them to think about right now, and that is the world, business and the world in general have so many challenges and opportunities that we haven't solved for yet. I believe the people listening can make something happen, can come up with brilliant ideas to solve some of these. We'd all be better. Our businesses would be better. I'd like people to just get out and try some new things. I'd like people to say it's okay if I don't know everything. I'm going to try some new things and try really hard to make a difference because the world needs me to be brilliant.
Mhm. Nicely said. Great words to live by. Before we end this episode, I got five quick rapid fire questions for you. Just give me the first thing that comes to mind. All right.
Okay.
You're stranded on a deserted island, one food to eat for the rest of your life, and you'll still be healthy, no consequence. What would it be?
Oh God, I'm on an island, so I guess I could eat sushi, right? I just have to fish, but I could eat sushi. I'm like addicted to sushi.
Awesome. Hollywood calls and goes, "Hey, Alan, we love your story. You're very, very inspirational and very, very motivational. We would love to do a biopic of you. Who would you cast to play you?"
Well, I've been told I look a little bit like Stanley Tucci, and so maybe I'll go with him.
Well, Stanley shows up at your door and goes, "Hey, buddy, I got cast to play you. Let's hang out." And he goes, "No worries. I got the whole night planned out." What does that look like?
A whole night planned out. I would probably go to a concert by a music group that I'd never, or a musician I'd never heard before. So I get exposed to some new sounds and new ideas, though I love jazz. And then I would go to a new restaurant I'd never been to before. And then, I don't know, I would come back and probably watch Colbert while he's still on TV.
Well, that restaurant that you had planned for some reason was closed that night. And he goes, "Hey, no worries. Let's come back to my place. I'm gonna fix you my special dish." What's that special dish that you prepare?
Anything spicy, I have to be honest. I love spice. I love sushi, but I love spicy food. I love food from Southeast Asia. I love spicy food from South Asia. I love spicy Latin American food. So bring on the chili peppers.
Nice. Give me a number from 1 to 4.
Three is my favorite number.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3. So the word is safari.
Okay.
So if you were to use the word safari as a metaphor for success, how is success like a safari?
Absolutely. We talked about it at the outset. I'll mention it again. I believe every single person listening here should take a safari near or far just to open their eyes to possibilities. So think about if I went on a safari in Africa, I'd see all kinds of animals that I've only seen in the zoo or in picture books. I would imagine or understand kind of the world they live in. I want people to go into cities, parks, wherever, take a safari with their eyes wide open, imagining that anything were possible and that they just need to find ideas that will make them more remarkable.
Nicely done. So that's how success is like a safari. Once again, thank you very much for your time, your stories, your wisdom. Any final words from you, and also what's the best way for people to get in touch?
Oh, no. So, first, thank you for having me on the show. I've appreciated the conversation. I hope this has been valuable to your audience. Um, People can get a hold of me by simply going to alangregerman.com, ALANGREGERMAN, or they can connect with me on LinkedIn, or they can send me an email. I don't know if you'll have all this stuff in the session notes, but my email is innovate@venture-works.com. Love to hear from people, love to hear what they're working on. Be glad to share ideas of things that I know or don't know.
Awesome. Well, for those of you out there who's looking for somebody to consult and also for somebody who can help you really find that value in your business, to help you elevate your offers and all that kind of stuff, Alan's a great guy to connect with. And obviously, you could have a lot of fun chatting with him too, because I hear he's very funny when it comes to all these consulting times. Once again, thank you very much. He's Alan. I'm Fong. Until next time, today is the day to unlock your peak potential. We'll see you later.